Lisa's Law, of course, has passed the House of Representatives and is now upstairs in the Senate and just completed the Senate Judiciary Committee there. And so we're hoping that we'll get it on the floor here very soon and then on to the governor for signature into law. What Lisa's Law does is it's a crime victims law. It derived from a story from many years ago, a very tragic story of a young lady by the name of Lisa Mulligan that was murdered over in DeKalb County. And her family since then has had, many years of just dealing with that case, from the murder going to through a trial and then to jail and death row and then back from death row, and just been a long, wrong story for their family. And through that, they've learned a whole lot of things. And they came to me talking about some of those issues they've dealt with. And one of them is the fact, and what Lisa's Law does, is that if someone who has been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, some violent crime like robbery, rape, murder, and then they try to profit from that crime, for instance, writing a book or doing a documentary of some type or a movie, and them or a third party begins to make money on that crime story, then that entity must notify the Attorney General's office and let them know that they've entered into a contract with that criminal, if you will, or that person is the convicted. And that allows the family then to have opportunity to file civil action against that money. So if they've made more than $5,000 directly related to the story of the crime that in essence they created, then those families of the victims or the victim themselves, if they're still living, would have access to those funds. And we just believe that that's something that's right to do. Most people would think that's common sense, but the family in this case has fought many years against this very issue. You have someone sitting either on death row or life in prison that's attempting to profit multiple times from the crime that they committed. And so we want those crime victims to have an opportunity to find some compensation out of that. It's by no means any retribution for what's happened or revenge or anything like that, but it is definitely something that we want to look at for those crime victims and make sure that if that person who committed the crime is going to attempt to profit off of it, that they have an opportunity to be compensated for that story and not the person who created the story.
Okay, I didn't realize it was the person like sitting in jail.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of like a third party. Does it go for them as well?
Yes, well, and it's not necessarily going for them. Obviously, if they contract with the person who committed the crime, it's really about whoever's profiting there. Is that they have an obligation to talk to the victims about that and give them an opportunity to be a part in that. And currently, the law doesn't allow for that. It's kind of amazing, but that's true. And there's a couple other pieces with the bill as well. There's a second bill that we've introduced that would actually be a constitutional amendment. In this particular case with Lisa Mulligan, her murderer was on death row. And on the last day of Governor Fob James' term in office, he commuted the sentence back to life and therefore made the killer, Judith Ann Neely, eligible for parole. This was done without the family having any prior notice whatsoever or any opportunity from the Attorney General's office to the local prosecutors to have a rebuttal to that decision. So what the constitutional amendment I've proposed would do is that the governor would still have the power to commute a death sentence. But if she did so, we're asking that they give at least 30 days notice to the victim's family so that they, and the Attorney General and the prosecutors, the local law enforcement that work the case, so that they could at least, again, give them some advice and counseling reference that issue. If the governor fails to do that, the family would have up to 30 days to file an appeal of that decision. And again, it allows them to do that and the Attorney General to work on their behalf to do so.
Okay. Is there any timeline for both of these? I know it's kind of happening, but...
Oh yeah, as you know, the legislative process takes time, and we've been working on these since the beginning of this session, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to see them pass through both houses with a favorable report and be able to get to the governor for her signature.